Before the show starts, drop a comment below with where you're watching from. Then sit back, relax, and get ready for some chilling stories. I had never been lucky with dating apps, so when I matched with Emily, I was caught off guard. She was gorgeous, long dark hair, striking blue eyes, and our conversations felt effortless. We talked for weeks, and everything about her seemed perfect. Same taste in movies, same sarcastic humor, even similar childhood memories. It felt like I had known her forever. After a while, she suggested meeting up. There's a small restaurant outside the city, quiet, great food. You'll love it. I agreed without hesitation. That night, I arrived a little early. The restaurant was small and dimly lit, with only a few occupied tables. The soft hum of conversation filled the space, and the scent of garlic and wine lingered in the air. I texted Emily, "Hey, just got here," sitting near the window. Her reply came almost instantly. "Perfect. Be there in 2 minutes. Can't wait to finally see you." A moment later, she walked in. And she was even more beautiful in person. She smiled as she approached, her eyes locking onto mine. "Ryan," she said warmly, sliding into the seat across from me. "It's so good to finally meet you." She was easy to talk to, charming, confident, the kind of person who made you feel like the most interesting person in the room. But something about her was off. At first, it was subtle. She asked a lot of questions, more than you'd expect for a first date. Where exactly did I live? Did I have roommates? What time did I usually get home from work? Did I always lock my doors at night? I laughed some of them off, answering vaguely, but a weird feeling started creeping in. Every time I tried to ask about her, where she worked, if she had siblings, she'd change the subject, steering the conversation back to me. Halfway through dinner, she glanced at her phone and sighed. "Sorry," she said. "I have to take this really quick. Work stuff. Be right back." She grabbed her purse and walked outside. I scrolled through my phone while waiting. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I sent her a message. "Everything okay?" No response. I looked toward the entrance. The door had a small glass panel, just enough to see the dark street outside. But Emily wasn't there. I checked the time. 15 minutes had passed. A strange feeling settled in my gut. I flagged down the waiter and asked if he had seen where she went. "She stepped outside a while ago," he said, frowning. "Didn't see her come back." Confused, I paid the bill and walked toward my car. That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. My driver's side door was slightly open. I knew I had locked it. Heart pounding, I approached slowly, scanning the parking lot. It was mostly empty. The street was quiet. I pulled the door open and looked inside. My glove compartment was open, papers scattered across the passenger seat. My backpack, which had been zipped shut, was slightly open. My wallet was still there, but my spare house key was missing. And then I saw it, a small folded note on the driver's seat. My hands trembled as I picked it up. It was blank, nothing written on it, no message, just an empty piece of paper, placed there deliberately. A cold shiver ran down my spine. I scanned my surroundings, but the street was empty. Still, the feeling was there, the overwhelming sensation of being watched. I jumped into my car, locked the doors, and drove home as fast as I could, my mind racing. That night, I barely slept. The whole thing felt too calculated. Why would someone break into my car and not take my wallet? Why leave a blank note? It wasn't about money. It was about me. The next morning, I tried calling Emily. The number was disconnected. I opened Tinder, and her profile was gone, like she had never existed. That's when the messages started. A new number. No name. "Did you get home safe?" I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. A second message came through. "I had a great time last night. Let's do it again soon." I didn't reply. I blocked the number. But the messages kept coming, from different numbers. "I love your apartment. So cozy. You should really lock your windows at night. Sleep tight, Ryan." I went to the police the next morning. I showed them the messages, explained what had happened with Emily. They took notes, but without any real evidence of a crime, there wasn't much they could do. "She could have just been messing with you," the officer said, shrugging. "A bad date, a weird prank. Just block the numbers and move on." I wanted to believe that. But then, 2 nights later, I woke up to a notification on my phone. One new message. It was from another unknown number. You looked cute sleeping. My breath caught in my throat. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering. My bedroom was dark, the only light coming from my phone screen. I turned on the lamp, scanned the room. Nothing. The apartment was silent. I forced myself to get up and check every door, every window. All locked. I even checked the closet, under the bed. Nothing. Maybe it was a bluff. Maybe whoever was sending these messages just wanted to scare me. But then I saw it. Near my front door, on the floor. A single muddy footprint. Panic surged through me. Someone had been inside. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and called the police again. This time, they took it more seriously. 2 officers arrived within minutes, searched my apartment, but found no one. No signs of forced entry. But one of them stopped near the window in my living room, his flashlight scanning the frame. "Do you usually keep this unlocked?" he asked. I felt my stomach drop. The latch was undone. I hadn't touched that window in weeks. The officer exhaled sharply. Whoever it was, they didn't break in. They had a way in already. The realization made my skin crawl. Had Emily, whoever she really was, unlocked my window the night we met? Was this planned from the start? I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few days, the messages kept coming. Short, taunting. "See you soon, Ryan. Nice new locks. Won't help. Miss me?" I changed my number. Got security cameras. Slept with a knife under my pillow. And then one evening, I got a call from the detective handling my case. His voice was tense. "Ryan," he said, "we pulled security footage from the restaurant. We need you to see something." I drove straight to the station. The detective led me into a small room, where a screen played a grainy black and white recording from the night of my date. It showed Emily getting up from the table, stepping outside. But she didn't leave alone. A man was waiting for her outside. She handed him something, small, metallic. My stomach twisted. My key. They spoke for a moment, then walked away together. The footage ended. I gripped the edge of the table, my breath shallow. The detective studied me. "We think this was a setup, a targeted scam, or worse. You got lucky." I swallowed hard. "What do I do now?" "Stay somewhere else for a while," he said. "And if you see her again, call us immediately." I didn't need to be told twice. I packed a bag that night and left my apartment. I changed all my locks, installed new cameras, even moved a few months later. But the messages never really stopped. New numbers, different words, always the same intent. "Sleep tight, Ryan." And the worst part, sometimes when I walk home late at night, I swear I see her. Just out of the corner of my eye, a figure in the crowd, a glimpse of dark hair, and I know deep down, she isn't done with me yet. I had been single for about a year when I finally decided to give Tinder a try. Dating apps had never really been my thing, but my friends convinced me it was worth a shot. "You never know," they said. "Maybe you'll meet someone great." That's how I matched with Mark. He was handsome in a clean-cut, well-groomed way, dark hair, sharp jawline, piercing green eyes. He was a lawyer, or at least that's what his profile said. Our conversations were easy. He was funny, confident, and always seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. After a few weeks of chatting, he asked me out to dinner. He picked a nice restaurant, not too fancy, but definitely a step up from the usual first date spots. I was nervous, but excited. That night, when I arrived, Mark was already there, waiting by the entrance with a charming smile. "Sophie," he said warmly, "you're even more beautiful in person." The date started off well. He was smooth, charming, the kind of guy who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. But as the night went on, something about him felt off. At first, it was subtle. He asked a lot of personal questions, where I lived, where I worked, if I lived alone. When I mentioned I had a security system, he smiled and said, "That's smart. You never know who's watching." It was a joke, but something about the way he said it made me uneasy. Then he started talking about how hard dating was for him. How women always ghosted him for no reason. How people didn't appreciate genuine connection anymore. It was a little intense for a first date, but I nodded along, trying to be polite. By the end of dinner, he was already planning our next date. "We should go to this wine bar I love," he said. "I'll pick you up." I hesitated. "I'll let you know," I said, forcing a smile. Something in his expression flickered for just a second, like he didn't like that answer. But then he smiled again, all charm. Of course. No pressure. I left feeling uncertain. He hadn't done anything overtly wrong, but my instincts told me something was off. And then the messages started. At first, it was normal. Had a great time tonight. But soon they became too much. Thinking about you. You're different from other girls. I can feel it. I don't usually connect with people like this. It's special, right? I responded politely but distantly. He wasn't getting the hint. Then one night, I came home late and noticed a car parked near my apartment building. A black sedan. Nothing unusual, but when I walked past it, I swore I saw someone watching me from inside. I turned to look, but the headlights flicked on, and the car pulled away before I could see the driver. The next morning, Mark texted me. Hope you got home safe last night. I hadn't told him I was out. I hadn't posted anything. My stomach twisted. I tried to shake it off, telling myself I was overthinking things. But then I started noticing other things. Little things. My front door mat was slightly crooked, even though I always placed it perfectly. My mail was slightly out of order, like someone had rifled through it. And then the worst thing. One night, I came home, went to my bedroom and froze. My closet door, normally shut tight, was open. Just a crack. My heart pounded as I slowly stepped closer, every instinct screaming at me to run. I reached out and pushed the door open. Nothing inside. Nothing seemed missing or out of place. But I knew. Someone had been here. I barely slept that night. The next morning, I made up my mind. I needed to cut Mark off completely. I sent him a final text. Hey, I think you're a great guy, but I'm not feeling a connection. I don't want to lead you on. I wish you the best. No response. Not that morning. Not that afternoon. Then, at 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Why would you do that? My stomach twisted. I blocked the number. But the messages kept coming. Different numbers, the same tone. I thought you were different. I just want to talk. You owe me an explanation. Then one night, an email. No text. Just an attachment. A photo. Of me. Taken from outside my window. I stared at the photo, my breath caught in my throat. It was taken from outside my bedroom window. I recognized the angle immediately. Someone had been there, watching me. My hands shook as I deleted the email and double-checked every lock in my apartment. The rational part of me wanted to believe this was just some cruel prank, but deep down I knew better. This was Mark. The next morning, I went to the police. I showed them the messages, the email, explained everything. The officer nodded, took notes, but in the end, he just sighed. There's not much we can do unless he actually threatens you or tries to break in. I felt sick. That night, I installed security cameras around my apartment. I barely slept, waking up at every little noise. For a few days, things were quiet. No messages. No strange cars outside. I started to think, maybe he had given up. Then one evening, I was heading out for groceries when I saw something that made my stomach drop. A small envelope, taped to my front door. Inside was a single piece of paper. You can ignore me all you want. I'm still here. I felt the walls closing in. I packed a bag and stayed at my friend Rachel's place for a few nights. She was furious when I told her what was happening. You need to move, she said. And I did. Within a week, I broke my lease, changed my number, deleted my social media, and moved across town. For a while, it felt like I had escaped. Months passed. No messages. No signs of him. I started to feel normal again. Until last night. I got home late from work, tossed my keys on the counter, and went to my bedroom. As I pulled the curtains shut, my stomach twisted. There, on the window, pressed against the glass, a single fingerprint. Fresh. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering. Then my phone buzzed. A new email. No subject. No text. Just an attachment. Another photo. Of me. Taken from outside my new apartment. Online dating had never really worked for me, but after months of my friends insisting, I finally gave in and downloaded Tinder. Most of the guys I matched with were either dull, arrogant, or only looking for something casual. Then I met David. He was different, not overly confident or full of himself, just polite, kind, and genuinely interested in me. He was a software engineer, loved dogs, and seemed like the kind of guy who actually listened. Our conversations were easy, and he never pressured me into meeting up. If anything, he seemed almost shy about it. After a few weeks of talking, I agreed to dinner. The restaurant was cozy, candlelit, the kind of place meant for long conversations. When I arrived, David was already there, waiting with a nervous but warm smile. "Laura," he said, standing up, "it's so great to finally meet you." We ordered drinks and started talking, and for a while, everything felt normal. He was just as thoughtful in person as he had been over text. But as the night went on, something about him felt slightly off. It was the way he talked, like he already knew me. At first, I didn't think much of it. When I mentioned my job at the hospital, he nodded knowingly. "Yeah, you work crazy shifts, right? Must be exhausting." I frowned slightly. "Did I tell you that?" "You must have," he said, laughing. "We've talked so much, it all blends together." I smiled, brushing it off. Maybe I had mentioned it and forgotten. But then he started mentioning other things. "Do you still go to that gym near 8th Street? He asked casually. I blinked. Yeah, I do." I was sure I had never told him that. A little voice in my head told me I should leave. That this was a mistake. But I didn't. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Oh, by the way, how's Buddy doing? I bet he misses you." I felt my stomach twist. Buddy. My dog. I had never mentioned his name. Not in our texts. Not in our conversations. My mind raced. Did I ever post about Buddy? No, my Instagram was private. My Tinder profile only had a few selfies. There was no way he should have known. I forced a laugh, trying to mask my unease. "I don't remember telling you about him." David's smile didn't falter. "You must have. Or maybe I just have a good memory." I suddenly wasn't hungry anymore. I made up an excuse about an early shift and told him I had to go. He seemed disappointed, but didn't argue. "It's okay," he said, smiling. "I'll see you soon." I didn't answer. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the conversation. The way he talked, the things he knew. It was probably nothing. Just a weird coincidence. At least, that's what I told myself. But then, the next morning, I saw him. I was grabbing coffee near my apartment when I spotted him across the street. Standing there, just watching. Our eyes met, and he grinned, lifting his cup in a casual wave. My heart pounded. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe he just happened to be there. But then it happened again. The next day at the grocery store. 2 days later, outside my gym. And every time, he acted like it was nothing. "Crazy running into you again." The first time, I forced a polite smile. The second time, I started feeling sick. By the third time, I knew. This wasn't a coincidence. I blocked his number. Deleted Tinder. Told myself that was the end of it. But that night, I got an email. No subject. No message. Just an attachment. I hesitated before opening it. It was a photo. Of me. Taken the night before. Walking home. I slammed my laptop shut, my hands shaking. My apartment suddenly felt too quiet. Too open. Then another email came through. I forced myself to look. "You're even prettier in person." I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside, every creak in my apartment made my skin crawl. My mind kept replaying the photo, the angle, the distance. He had been close. Close enough to see me, to capture my face clearly. The next morning, I went straight to the police. I showed them the emails, explained how he kept appearing near me, how he knew things he shouldn't. The officer took notes, but his expression remained neutral. "He hasn't threatened you," he said. "Technically, he hasn't committed a crime." I felt my stomach twist. "He's stalking me." My voice was shaking. The officer sighed. "I get why you're scared, but unless he does something more direct, there's not much we can do." I left feeling worse than when I arrived. That night, I installed new locks, bought security cameras, and stayed up watching the footage from my front door. Hours passed. Nothing. But then at 3:12 a.m., a notification. Motion detected. My stomach dropped. I clicked on the live feed. The footage was grainy in the dim lighting, but I could see someone standing at the bottom of the stairs leading to my apartment door. Not moving. Just standing there. Even though the image was blurry, I knew. It was him. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared at the screen, my pulse hammering in my ears. After a few minutes, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. I barely made it to morning before calling my landlord and breaking my lease. I packed a bag, found a temporary place, and spent the next few days looking for a new apartment, somewhere farther, safer. I changed my number, deleted my social media. For weeks, things were quiet. No emails, no sightings. I started to believe I had escaped. Until one evening, after a late shift at the hospital, I walked to my car, exhausted but relieved. I hadn't thought about David in days, but as I approached my car, I stopped. Something was sitting on my hood, a small, neatly wrapped box. My hands trembled as I reached for it. Inside, there was a stack of photographs. Of me. Weeks of photos. Some from far away, some close, too close. Me walking to work. Me leaving the gym. Me at my apartment window. And at the bottom of the stack, one last photo. Me. Right now. Standing at my car, holding the box. A chill ran through me. My breath hitched. I turned, my eyes scanning the parking lot, the shadows, the streetlights. No one. But I knew he was there. Watching. Waiting. I ran. I don't remember getting home. Don't remember locking the doors behind me. But I must have. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and called the police again. This time, they took it seriously. The photos were enough. They launched an investigation, but David had vanished. No job records. No real address. It was as if he had never existed. I moved again. Changed everything. For months, nothing. No messages. No packages. No signs. And then last night, another email. No text. Just a single attachment. A photo of my new apartment, taken from outside my window.